Shalom, greetings, and welcome back to the broadcast. I'm Sean. The website can be found at www.scriptureandprophecy.com. Well, this week's portion is called Vayera, and it's the fourth reading from the book of Genesis, and it's named Vayera, which means, and he appeared, because the first story describes how the Lord appeared to Abraham one day as he sat outside his tent. And, of course, that section continues with the series of tests of faith of Abraham, concluding in one great final trial. Now, today we are going to be looking at the prophets portion, which actually comes out of 2 Kings, and it's the story of Elisha, or Elisha, not to be confused with Elijah. Elisha is Elijah's predecessor, as to speak. And this particular story deals with Elisha, and he helps out this widow, and he helps this other person, and so it's just a great story and a great lesson for us to read. As a matter of fact, Kings and Samuel are on my list of books in the Bible to do a series on, but they're fairly large, and so they would take some time, but it's definitely on my radar for something potentially to do next, once we're done with the book of Enoch. But at any rate, that's what we're going to be looking at today, and we're going to be looking at the gospel portion, which is Luke chapter 17, which deals with it's only a few verses that we're looking at, but it's the verses where Jesus says it'll be like the days of Lot. It'll be like the days of Noah. But specifically, the days of Lot. And of course, it's the reason why that's the gospel portion for this week is because in the Torah portion for the week, we deal with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. So there you have it. That's the introduction for what we're about to do. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to read 2 Kings chapter 4, the first 37 verses, and of course we'll read from the King James Bible. Let's begin. Chapter 4, verse 1. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, Thy servant my husband is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord. And the creditor is come to take unto him my two sons to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, Thy handmaid hath not anything in the house, save a pot of oil. Then he said, Go, borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shalt pour out into all those vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. So she went from him, and shut the door upon her, and upon her sons who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her sons, Bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, There is not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, Go, sell the oil, and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children of the rest. And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to let's hold up. Before I move to verse 8 and the story changes, what we have here is we have a woman who's a widow, and she comes to the man of God, Elisha, which, by the way, Elisha means God is salvation. And it is pronounced Elisha, if you look at it in Hebrew, not Elisha, as you'll hear many say it. It's Elisha, which means God is salvation. But she comes to the man of God, and she says, I'm a widow, but my husband, he feared Jehovah. He feared the Lord. And now, because of the debts that I owe, the creditors have come, and they're threatening to take my two sons. And so he asked her, what do you have in the house? And she says, all I have is a bottle of oil. So he sends her to gather all kinds of vessels from her neighbors and to just pour that oil into those vessels. And the oil never runs out until all the vessels are full. And then he tells her to sell the vessels to pay for her debt and then live off the rest. And of course, it's a story, obviously it's a story of great faith. As we're going to see in the next part here, both of these deal with not only great faith on the part of the man of God, on the prophet, but great faith on the people coming to the prophet for help. And so it's just a beautiful picture of faith. Let's continue the story. Verse 8. And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunammite, where was a great woman, and she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that as oft as he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, Behold, now I perceive that this is a holy man of God, which passeth by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be, when he cometh to us, that he shall turn in thither. And it fell on a day that he came thither, and he turned into the chamber and lay there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, Call this Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said unto him, Say now unto her, Behold, thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for thee? Wouldst thou be spoken for to the king, or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among my own people. All right, so real quick, what we have here is we have a woman that appears to be fairly wealthy. Okay, she's a Shunammite, she's not a Jew. And she gives bread to Elisha as he passes by occasionally, and she perceives that he must be a man of God. So she has her husband basically build on or renovate an area of the house so that there's a place for him to stay. And so she's showing the man of God great kindness. And he says to her, What is it that you would like me to do for you since you've been so kind to me? Do you want me to speak on your behalf to the king? And she says, Well, I dwell among my own people. In other words, things are good here. I prefer to just be left alone, right? Verse 14. And he said, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Verily, she hath no child, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the door. And he said, About this season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. And she said, Nay, my lord, thou man of God, do not lie unto thy handmaid. And the woman conceived and bare a son at that season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life. So she doesn't really have any need of anything, but the servant tells Elisha that, well, she doesn't have a child. And so he promises that she will have a child at the Moedim, at the appointed time. That's why the King James will say, at the season, about this season. So if we go to verse 16 and we look at the Hebrew, and he said, about this season, and the word is moed, or moedah, which means at the appointed time, you will have a child. Verse 18. And when the child was grown, it fell on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said unto his father, My head, my head. And he said to the lad, Carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon, and then died. And she went up, and she laid him on the bed of the man of God, and she shut the door upon him, and went out. And she called unto her husband, she said, Send me, I pray thee, one of the young men, and one of these asses, that I may run to the man of God, and come again. And he said, Wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. And she said, It shall be well. All right, let's stop right here. This is where you're going to see the demonstration of this woman's faith. Not only did she recognize the man of God, and she made all that in the house for him, but now she has this son that the man of God promised her, and he's died. But she's not taking that as, it's in her mind, it's not over till it's over, even though in all logic it's over, right? Her son is dead. But she lays him on the bed of the man of God. She goes to her husband and says, "Let me leave. I need transportation, and I need some help." And he's like, "Where are you going to go find him today? It's neither a new moon and it's not the Sabbath." And she said, "It shall be well." And when she says, "It shall be well," that's where the real demonstration of faith is, which, by the way, is the word shalom. So here her son has just died, and her husband's like, what are you going to do? And she's like, shalom. She's like, peace, sound peace, welfare, peace, completeness, peace, quietness. She's completely sold out to faith right now about this situation. Verse 24. And she saddled an ass and said to her servant, "Drive and go forward. Slack not thy riding for me, except I bid thee." So she went out, and she came unto the man of God to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to Gehazi, his servant, "Behold, yonder, that is the Shunammite. Run now, I pray thee, to meet her, and say unto her, Is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with the child?" And she answered, "It is well." So again, verse 26. So the servant runs out to meet her, and he says, "Hey." So Elisha's wondering, "Hey, whoa, what is she doing here?" And he sends his servant, "Go ask her, make sure everything is okay with her, her husband, and her child." And she answers with shalom, peace, everything's well. Verse 27. When she came to the man of God, to the hill, she caught him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God said, "Let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her. And the Lord hath hid it from me, and hath not told me." Then she said, "Did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, Do not deceive me?" Then he said to Gehazi, "Gird up thy loins, and take my staff in thy hand, and go thy way. If thou meet any man, salute him not. If any salute thee, answer him not again. And lay my staff upon the face of the child." And the mother of the child said, "As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee." And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the face of the child, but there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and he told him, saying, "The child is not awakened." And when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead, and laid upon his bed. And he went in therefore, and he shut the door upon them twain, and prayed unto the Lord. And he went up, and he lay upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands. And he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. Then he returned, and walked in the house to and fro, and went up, and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi, and he said, "Call the Shunammite." So he called her. And when she was coming unto him, he said, "Take up thy son." And she went in, and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and took up her son, and went out. And that is our prophet portion this morning. And if you've never heard that story, it's very interesting, very, very powerful. Matter of fact, the prophet Elisha is very, very interesting to study, just in general. And like I said, maybe Kings can be the next thing that we take a look at after we're done with the book of Enoch. All right, we don't have a whole lot of time left, so let's go ahead and read our gospel portion, which is not very long. Now remember, in the Torah portion, which we'll cover, Lord willing, on Friday, deals with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. And so this story kind of fits in. So here's what it says in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, verse 28 through 37. Likewise, also, as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus it shall be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. In that day he which shall be upon a housetop, and his stuff in the house, let him not come down and take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Remember Lot's wife. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. I tell you, in that night there shall be 2 men in one bed, and one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. 2 women shall be grinding together, and one shall be taken, and the other left. 2 men shall be in the field, one shall be taken, and the other left. And they answered and they said unto him, Where, Lord? And he said unto them, Wheresoever the body is, thither the eagles will be gathered together. All right. So, before this part, Jesus is saying that his coming it'll be like the days of Noah. People will be eating and drinking. The point is, although we do believe that it could be a loaded statement, but the very basic and surface level point is that, hey, destruction's going to come, but it's going to be unsuspected, right? People aren't going to realize it. It'll also be like the days of Lot. People will be eating, they'll be drinking, they'll be buying, they'll be selling, they'll be planting, they'll be doing all normal life, right? But that very day that Sodom went out, or that Lot left Sodom, in other words, the very day that the righteous was removed, it rained fire and brimstone and destroyed them all. Like they had no clue this was coming. So it shall be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. Now, I think with most of the prophecies that Jesus gives, we have a dual purpose, a double layer here. I think he's specifically talking to them about the judgment that would come on Jerusalem in 70 AD. And that's why he says things like this: if you're up on a housetop and his stuff is in the house, let him not come down and take it away. He that's in a field, likewise, don't let him return back. So, like, if you're out doing this stuff and this happens, you just need to get lost. Because if you're here in the city, you're going to be destroyed. And he says, remember Lot's wife. In other words, don't be looking back. Don't be foolish. Lot's wife they were told not to even look back. Lot's wife looked back, longing for the city, longing for her, likely her children that were still left in the city. And she was turned to a pillar of salt. And Jesus makes the point, if you're looking to save your life, you're going to lose it. But those who are willing to lose their life shall preserve it. And then he tells this interesting part, and many think that this is the rapture of some kind, because it says, you've got the 2 men in the bed, and the other one will be taken, and the other shall be left. By the way, that doesn't mean that they sleep together. It's just a picture of people resting. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and the other left. 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left. And they answered unto him, Where, Lord? And he said, Wherever the body is, thither the eagles will be gathered together. In other words, it'll be obvious. It'll be obvious. Just like when you see buzzards circling around, there's a carcass nearby that they're circling. It'll be obvious where they've been taken. It'll be obvious. There's other views of that. Some people think it's just talking about how, some people are going to survive and some people aren't. Half of them will live, half of them won't. It's up for interpretation for sure. But that is the gospel portion for this week and the prophet portion for this week. And I pray in the powerful name of Yeshua, in the powerful name of Jesus, that you have been blessed by this work this morning. If so, you can support this work. Go to scriptureandprophecy.com. You can support it through PayPal or post office box, or you can become a monthly Patreon subscriber, which really helps support this work, and also gives you access to the Hebrew Basics training videos. That's all I have for you this morning, friends. Peace and grace be with all of you, and until next time, God bless.